as that goes away, as we know more and more that, and it seems harder and harder to prove that anything might exist like that, where does that leave us?
On our own. Which, to my mind, is much more responsible than hoping that someone will save us from ourselves so we don't have to make our best efforts to do it ourselves. But why would we use a word so ambiguous that means so many different things?
It gives you freedom to define it as
It gives you freedom to seem to agree with someone else with whom you do not agree. Now, there's been the view that if there's nothing special about us in space, maybe there's something special about us in time. We've been put here by the Creator to take care of things. Stewardship is the very engaging word that is often used. Who knows what would happen to the environment without us? So we have an obligation to make sure everything goes as God would have wished it. The only trouble with this idea, well, there are several, but for me the principal trouble with this idea is that 99.998% of the lifetime of the universe from its beginning to now was over before any human appeared on the scene. So if we are the caretakers, where have we been for most of the time we're supposed to be doing our job? We have been terribly lax. I could see that the chief gardener might be very annoyed with us, which in turn might explain a great deal. We could not have been put here as caretakers because we have not been taking care, A, because we weren't here, and B, because when we have been here, we haven't been doing very well either. Then there was the view that if there is nothing special about our position in space or our position in time, there's something special about our motion. We have a privileged frame of reference. This was the classical absolute motion physics that every great physicist bought into until 1905. Albert Einstein, a keen critic of privilege in the social sphere, immediately mistrusted the contention that the planet we happen to live on was affixed to an imaginary frame of reference which had special merit with regard to the laws of nature, and instead asked what kind of physics would it be if you deduced the same laws of physics no matter what planet you lived on and what star you lived on. And that is one approach to special relativity, which is repeatedly confirmed and is the way the universe is put together. Another chauvinism biting the dust. Now, this is a set of what Annie Drian has called the great demotions. And there are people who find it very upsetting, who still long to be at the center. And one area where you can see the emotions not hidden but written out in clear is in special creation. The notion that we are the particular objects of the devotion of the creator of the universe, that we're different from the other animals, never mind plants, not just in degree but in kind. And you know the list. No one else has altruism, compassion. No other animal loves their young. Nobody else can foresee the future consequences of present actions. Nobody else has art or music. Nobody else can use tools. Nobody else can make tools. And this list, it goes on, is essentially agreed to by Plato, Aristotle, St. Augustine, St. Thomas Aquinas, Hobbes, Locke, all the great figures in philosophy, with the single exception of David Hume, hats off to him, bought into by all scientists, including highly skeptical ones up until the year 1859, bought into, of course, by all the religious leaders of at least the Western religions, especially the Judeo-Christian Islamic religion. And in 1859, Charles Darwin made the first and heroic effort at pricking this balloon, showing that one species could in fact evolve by absolutely natural processes without anything foreordained from another species. And then when he got up the courage, it took a great deal of it, more than a decade later, he published his second book on the subject, suggesting not only does it apply to lots of species, but us too. We and the chimps have a common ancestor. They're our cousins. This contention really makes a lot of people upset. Have you been to a zoo lately? Have you looked at what a chimpanzee does? Maybe you're related to chimps, buddy, but I'm not. Well, we can learn about chimp behavior in zoos about as well as we can learn about human behavior in jails. And for exactly the same reasons. They don't bring out the best in us. But when people like Jane Goodall devote themselves to observing chimpanzees in their natural habitats, the chimps get used to them. The chimps have no trouble recognizing after a while that the humans are somewhat inept chimps. Then we find very different behavior. And I can't resist telling the story of Geza Teleki, a anthropologist and animal behaviorist who wished to learn chimpanzee technology, particularly the termite fishing industry in which they are adept. And so he apprenticed himself for 9 months to a chimp named Leakey, who was expert.
Religion keeps trying to place humans at the center of the universe, but science keeps knocking that idea down. The universe existed for almost its entire history before humans showed up. Earth formed about 4.5 billion years ago, while modern humans appeared only around 300,000 years ago. So the idea that humans were created as the main caretakers of everything sounds arrogant, not factual. Evolution made it worse for religion. Humans are animals, connected to other life, not separate magical creatures placed above nature. Christianity sells human importance. Science shows human reality.
Now, the chimpanzee termite fishing industry goes as follows. You find a reed, not any kind of reed, the right kind of reed. You strip it of supernumerary branches, feel that it's right, and then go to the enormous termite mound. Now, each night, the termites cover over the entrances to their nests. The chimp takes one look, scratches away 2, 3 places where the entryways have been walled up, takes the reed or grass stem, in one deft motion, puts it down into the termite mound, gives a few twists, carefully pulls it out. The thing is covered with termites. The chimp goes, nom, 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 and here is a good source of protein. Now, if a human were dropped down in this same place and had a need of protein, this source is unavailable to humans. Teleki, spending full time on this problem for months, could A, not break off the right kind of reed. He, in fact, had to use the leftovers that chimps had picked out, could not, after 9 months, find the openings to the apertures that the chimp takes one look at and opens up. Could not put it down deftly, would do that and the thing would come out accordioned. Could not wiggle it enticingly to get the termites on, and could not withdraw it without scraping off almost all the termites. At the end of 9 months, he'd come up with 1 termite per. Chimps know how to do stuff. And how do young chimps know to do what Geza Teleki did not learn how to do? They were apprenticed for years. By the way, in Teleki's wonderful paper, in the acknowledgments, he thanks his patient tutor and apologizes for his failures because they are not the fault of the being he was apprenticed to. It's just humans aren't very good at this stuff. There is, in fact, a bonobo, a kind of chimp, who lives in Atlanta, who not only knows how to use stone tools, but knows how to make stone tools. This source of human pride is, again, misplaced. Now, of course, there are differences between chimps and us, and we have, electric light bulbs and police cars and CD players and nuclear weapons, all sorts of things that chimps don't have, but we can't say that they don't have any technology. And when it became possible in the late 19th century to do DNA-based sequencing, you could get a quantitative measure of the relationship between humans and chimps, and it turns out that the two species share 99.6% of their active genes. So one way to look at that is 0.4% is a much larger number than we had guessed. And another way to look at that is, you want to know about us, take a look at chimps. There's a lot there to learn. In any case, the idea of special creation is really an idea for another time. If nothing else but the molecular biological evidence were available, it would be very clear that there is nothing in us that is qualitatively different from our nearest chimpanzee relatives. That then takes us to the present stands where these great chauvinism battles are taking place. One is the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. We have not found life, much less intelligence, anywhere else yet. We send spacecraft to other planets to look for life. We construct large radio telescopes and listen if anyone is sending us a message lately. Both of these activities have led to occasional tantalizing data, but none of it of a sufficient quality to say that we've detected life or intelligence elsewhere. In our ignorance, the geocentrists find hope. They confuse absence of evidence with evidence of absence. You haven't found life elsewhere? There isn't any. We're the only living creatures on the planet, in the universe, on this planet. You haven't found intelligence elsewhere? There isn't any elsewhere. It's only here. We are at the center of the intellectual cosmos. And while I could give you what I consider to be a strong plausibility argument why this conceit is also erroneous, it's only fair to say that nobody knows the answer to this issue. We have not found life or intelligence elsewhere. We are in the course of looking. Maybe we will find it tomorrow. Maybe it will take centuries. Maybe we will never find it. And all we have to do is keep an open mind. There's no other approach. You don't have to make up your mind in the absence of evidence. And then finally, there is a new and, to my mind, bizarre field for this debate, something called the anthropic principle, which would be much better called the anthropocentric principle, which comes in strong, weak, and various shades of middling flavors. The weak anthropic principle says, if the laws of nature and the fundamental constants of nature were significantly different, then the paths which led to us would have been different and we wouldn't be here. That is unexceptionable, certainly true. No problem. But then there is a strong anthropic principle which, to my mind, is dangerously close to the following argument. We would not be here if the laws of nature and the values of the physical constants were other than they are. Therefore, the laws of nature and the physical constants are as they are in order for the universe to produce us. God had us in mind at the time the universe was made, and here we are back at the center of the universe again.
Human pride takes another hit when we look at chimpanzees. They use tools, make tools, learn skills, and pass knowledge through patient teaching. That destroys the old religious idea that humans stand in a separate spiritual category above every animal. DNA makes the problem even worse for special creation. Humans and chimpanzees are deeply related at the genetic level. Religion starts with human superiority and works backward. Science starts with evidence and shows we are part of nature, not placed above it by divine favoritism.
There are many things which can be said about this, including the point that Philip Morrison, among others, has made, that who has traced through what other laws of nature and physical constants will lead to the functional equivalence of life and intelligence? It's impossible to do. You can also argue against it that it is not very vulnerable to experimental investigation. But I would just like to point out that there's something telling about calling it the anthropic principle, because the same laws of nature and the same physical constants are required to make a rock as to make a person. Why is it not called the lithic principle? So there's a strong and weak lithic principle. And in the strong lithic principle, the laws of nature and the physical constants are as they are, so rocks could come into being. Not nearly as satisfying, right? But if rocks could philosophize, I bet you we would hear nothing of the anthropic principle, and at the cutting edge of rock philosophy would be the lithic principle. I have only 2 slides. If I can show the first one, please. This is a absolutely typical astronomical photograph of what's called a star field. Now, focus is important, please. Oh, went right through it. That's pretty good. Ooh, back a little. Yep, good. Now, take a look up here. What you are looking at is some, I'm not sure, 10,000 stars, something like that. One in front of another, so that they seem so closely packed that from a greater distance or with a smaller aperture telescope, you could not even tell they are individual stars. This is what the Milky Way is. It's stars in line of sight so closely packed that it looks like a continuum of light. Many of these stars are more or less like the sun. As I was saying before, it now looks as if planets are a frequent, if not invariable, accompaniment of star formation. And again, I ask you to consider the contention that the only life and intelligence in the universe is, let's say, that dot. No, not that one. That one right there. See? That's it. Nowhere else. Maybe hard to extrapolate from one example, and one example is all we have, but this is so resonant with the other human conceits I tried to outline in the Great Demotions that I am suspicious of it for that reason alone. Lights, please. I want to conclude with one of the many psychic rewards that planetary exploration has brought to me. As Ed Stone outlined in his talk this morning, there was a moment when the two Voyager spacecraft had completed their close-up reconnaissances of the Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune systems. No other planets that we were going to rendezvous with further out in the solar system. It was now possible to turn the cameras close to the sun, and if the worst happened and we burnt out the optics, so what? There was nothing else we were going to photograph. Because I had wanted, from the time of the Saturn encounter, to take a picture of the Earth from that remote vantage point. And at the same time, I wanted us to get to Uranus and Neptune and see what was there, and the spacecraft phenomenally outperformed its design specifications, and the bulk of our knowledge of the outer solar system has come because JPL did such a brilliant job with these extraordinary spacecraft coming in on time, under cost, and vastly exceeding the fondest hopes of their designers. Anyway, as Ed well knows, it was by no means easy, even though the downside was almost nil, to turn the cameras back, and it required an actual intervention by the NASA administrator to get it done, but it was done. Now, it was clear that because the picture, Voyager 1 picture, was taken from beyond the orbit of Neptune, that the Earth would appear only as a single picture element, a single pixel. You would not even see continents. You could not tell any detail. I still thought it would be useful to do, in the same sense that the great frame-filling Apollo 17 picture of the whole Earth has become a kind of icon of our age, because it said something very powerful to us, including the fact that from that perspective, national boundaries were not in evidence. Well, these pictures were taken in part due to the excellent estimates of exposure times by Carolyn Porco, and I'd like to show you in the last slide. Due to motion, the Earth momentarily, no chauvinistic implications, this is just foreground optics, the Earth in a sunbeam. Wait a little bit and it's not in the sunbeam. So there it is. I mean, take a look. It's a pale blue dot. That's us. That's home. That's where we are. On it, everybody you love, everybody you know, everybody you've ever heard of. lived out their days there. The aggregate of all our joy and suffering, thousands of confident ideologies, religions, economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilizations, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every hopeful child, every mother and father, every inventor and explorer, every revered teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every uncorrupt politician too, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there.
The designed for us argument shrinks fast when you look at the sky honestly. A single star field contains thousands of stars, and many stars likely have planets. Yet religion still wants to pretend one tiny dot is the whole purpose of creation. That is not evidence. That is ego dressed up as faith. Science admits what it does not know. Religion rushes in, declares humans the center, and calls that humility. The pale blue dot destroys that arrogance.
Yes, please. We'd like to know two things. First one is, who said billions and billions?
That I can answer very quickly. It's someone named Johnny Carson. I never said it. I never, ever said it.
He's off the hook, everybody.
I mean, it's sort of like Humphrey Bogart never said, "Play it again, Sam." Nobody believes it, but
It's elementary, my dear Watson.
Say again?
It's elementary.
It's elementary, my dear Watson. Is another in the movies. He says it. Basil Rathbone says it, but in the Arthur Conan Doyle books, he never says it. Yes, and your second.
Okay, so we also want to know, what, if any, one thing in particular would you have yourself be remembered by?
You know, I hate the one only kind of question. You know, what's your favorite scientist, or what's the greatest discovery in the history of the world? I don't know. I have to leave the decision about how I'm going to be remembered, which I hope will not have to be faced for some time, to others. But thanks very much for the question. Yes.
I was interested in your great demotions, and I certainly
Speak more into the mic.
I certainly, let's say, agree in most ways with what you say. Where among the great demotions would you fit in, or would you fit in at all, the appearance of consciousness among humans?
Yes, that's an important question. I'll repeat it because her voice, while lovely, is very soft. The question is, what about the evolution of consciousness? Isn't this another of the conceits that only humans are conscious? I'm paraphrasing. But would I include that in the demotions? Annie Drian and I wrote a book called Shadows of Forgotten Ancestors, in which we tried systematically to look at each of these, what I've called conceits. And I think the most startling thing we learned, or I'll speak for myself, that I learned in the course of doing that book, was how we kept getting it wrong on these issues. Now, consciousness has various meanings. If it means an awareness of the external world and modifying your behavior to take account of the external world, then I think microbes are conscious. If you mean deep thoughts, like Bishop Berkeley's contention that nothing exists except what's in his mind, I'm with the microbes myself. You see, how do you know that I think any thoughts? only because I happen to be communicating to you. You can't easily tell that I have philosophical thoughts by looking at me drinking this cup of water, right? So imagine that I was mute, that I could not communicate by speech or writing or anything else. Then how would you know if I had such thoughts? The evidence for not just the so-called higher apes, but running through the apes and the monkeys, to me is very persuasive that they have thoughts. Not only deep philosophical thoughts, but useful practical thoughts, like lying, like deceit, like planning to fool others, thinking about it far in advance. But let me just give one little image, which I like because it covers many different grounds. These are the results of work at the Arnhem colony in the Netherlands, where there's a large free roaming community of chimps. Males are testosterone riven and subject to raging hormonal imbalances. They get angry at each other and pick up rocks. They go quite a distance to get the rocks in order to confront the guy who they don't like and throw stones. The very act of going over there out of sight of the enemy to pick up the stones and then bring them back to throw the stones shows thinking ahead, understanding a goal, and aware of yourself and the opposition. But the most interesting thing is it is common for female chimps, seeing the males burdened with their stones, to walk up to them and disarm them, pluck the stones out of their arms, open up their fingers and throw the stones away. And when the males in a huff gather them up, the females disarm them again. So not only do the males know what they have in mind, the females know what they have in mind. And that, to me, not only is consciousness, but a social arrangement I'd like to see more of in humans.
My question is, given all these demotions, what is your personal religion, or is there any type of God to you? Like, is there a purpose, given that we're just sitting on this speck in the middle of this sea of stars?
Now, I don't want to duck any questions, and I'm not going to duck this one, even though I have high religious personages who are close friends of mine in this room. But let me ask you, what do you mean when you use the word God?
Well, I guess what my question, it's like, is there a purpose for, I mean, given all these demotions, why don't we just blow ourselves up?
Why
It's
don't
like,
we?
Yeah, what is our purpose? I mean,
Let me turn the question around. If we do blow ourselves up, does that disprove the existence of God?
no, I guess not.
I mean, it'll be a little late to make the discovery, but still.
Yeah, I guess what I'm asking is, since as we kind of make God almost go away in this, as he through these demotions, and I don't mean he, because who knows what God is, but
still saying it makes it
Right.
sort of icky, doesn't it?
yeah, it's tough.
We like it to be a he,
yeah.
don't we?
Yeah. We've been trained to think of it as a he. It seems that through the ages, humans have created a mythological framework that has always often involved some kind of higher spiritual powers. And as
Every human culture has done that.
As that goes away, as we know more and more that, and it seems harder and harder to prove that anything might exist like that, where does that leave us?
On our own. Which to my mind is much more responsible than hoping that someone will save us from ourselves so we don't have to make our best efforts to do it ourselves. And if we're wrong, and there is someone who steps in and saves us, okay, that's all right. I'm for that, but we, hedged our bets. It's Pascal's bargain run backwards. I'll say another word. The word God covers an enormous range of different ideas, and you recognize that in the way you phrase the question. Running from an outsized, light-skinned male with a long white beard sitting in a throne in the sky and tallying the fall of every sparrow, for which there is no evidence. To my mind, if anybody has some, I sure would like to see it. To the kind of God that Einstein or Spinoza talked about, which is very close to the sum total of the laws of the universe. Now, it'd be crazy to deny that there are laws in the universe, and if that's what you want to call God, then of course God exists. And there are all sorts of other nuances. There is, for example, the deist God that many of the founding fathers of this country believed in, although it is a secret whose name may not be spoken in some circles, a roi fainéant, a do-nothing king, the God who creates the universe and then retires, and to whom praying to is sort of pointless. He's not here. He went somewhere else. He had other things to do. Now, that's also a God. So when you say, do you believe in God? If I say yes or if I say no, you have learned absolutely nothing.
I guess I'm asking you to define yours if you have one.
But why would we use a word so ambiguous that means so many different things?
It gives you freedom to define it
It
as you
gives
choose.
you freedom to seem to agree with someone else with whom you do not agree.
When people say God, they often hide inside a word that means almost anything. It can mean a bearded ruler in the sky, a silent creator who left, or simply the laws of nature. That is the problem. The claim keeps changing whenever evidence is demanded. Science forces clear definitions. Religion survives by staying blurry. And when humans ask, what gives us purpose? The honest answer is harder but stronger. We are responsible for ourselves. Hoping a supernatural rescue is coming has no evidence, and it can become an excuse to avoid reality.
It covers over differences. It makes for social lubrication, but it is not an aid to truth, in my view. And therefore, I think we need much sharper language when we ask these questions. Sorry to take so long in answering this, but this is an important issue.
Hi.
Hi.
Me and some of the other students here at Cornell were wondering about your house. What was it? Some kind of power plant or what?
Power plant.
What was it before
okay.
It was your house?
Right. Good. I guess what I said, I try to answer questions even that aren't related to what I talked about. I really let myself in for it. Okay. That is a study that Annie and I work in, and we love it. It was, a long time ago, the headquarters of the Cornell Sphinx Head Society, in which God knows what abominable rites were performed. But I can assure you, these days, it is extremely placid. And Annie says she's not so sure. Anyway, it's very benign, whatever its early history, which goes back to, I think, 1892, may have been. It also was once a sculpture studio of a remarkable Cornell professor, designer of nuclear accelerators, and sculptor par excellence named Bob Wilson. Yes?
Yeah. I want to know what your views were on astrology. I know it's a related science to astronomy.
On what?
On astrology, extrasensory
Astrology is a
perception.
hoax.
What's, excuse me?
It's a hoax.
Hoax?
H-O-A-X.
So, what about the documented proof of...
Say again?
What about documented proof of studies where
What about what?
ESP, clairvoyance, you totally
Well,
disagree?
that's different. That's different, right? Right?
Okay, well that's
Astrology is different from ESP
okay.
and clairvoyance,
Sorry
right?
to confuse the two.
But
About
no, I'm happy to answer. I just
Okay,
want to
okay.
be clear.
extrasensory perception,
Right.
telekinesis, do they exist, and does everybody, do certain individuals have it, and how did it arrive
If
into
it
society?
exists, it would have arisen by evolution, by natural selection, the same way as everything else. But what do we mean by extrasensory perception? There is a African freshwater fish that establishes static electric fields and then detects its prey by perturbations in the electric field. We can't do that at all. Doesn't correspond to any of our senses. Does this fish have ESP?
In a sense, yes, but okay.
If it does have ESP, is this mysterious? Is it a challenge to science? Or is it just another way of perceiving the world?
It's a different way of perceiving the world.
Yeah.
But what
So, therefore, if there is ESP, I think the chances are excellent that, that it can be well understood by science, but to the best of my knowledge, there isn't any ESP.
that leads to my question.
Yes.
Hi, I'd like, first of all, to say that it must be a true privilege to be able to develop a career in something as stimulating intellectually and spiritually as astronomy. Now, my question to you is, what's your opinion on the use of animals in biomedical research?
On what?
The use of animals
in biomedical
animals.
research. Right. I have struggled greatly with this issue, in part because I have a graduate student, Peter Wilson, who holds my feet to the fire on this issue. For example, I have a 20-year-old leather jacket that I used to wear to Cornell that I don't wear anymore. I do wear it around the house, if truth be told. I am very conflicted on this issue. That gratuitous pain should not be inflicted on other animals, or for that matter, plants, I think is clear. And that animals should not be made to suffer for fairly trivial goals. The making of lipstick, for example, I think is clear. To argue, though, that animals should not be used in the pursuit of medicines and medical procedures that might save the lives of humans is not so clear to me. And Charles Darwin had just the same distinction. He was way ahead of his time in opposing gratuitous pain, but would also not argue that no animal experiments should be done. And I think if I had to explain, somehow it was my job to do so, to some people whose child was dying because a medical procedure was unavailable, which might very well have been available if animal experimentation had been performed, I don't know how I would do that justification. Now, you might say to me that I'm putting humans higher than other animals. And where do I come off doing that, especially at the end of an evening where I've been decrying chauvinisms? This, to me, is like the argument that is sometimes, so Dave Morrison mentioned it in his talk today. Why should we take any steps to save ourselves if an asteroid is going to hit the Earth, since asteroids have hit the Earth in the past? And, others have gone, so we might be here, so we'll go, so You know, whatever it is, the raccoons will have their chance, or the ants, or the sulfur oxidation state altering submarine worms will inherit the earth. At this point, I have no difficulty in, since I happen to be, it's an accident of birth, a human being, to justify human beings trying to survive under sometimes trying circumstances. That's my judgment. I'm sure if, you know, I were a lizard up here, I would be talking about, yes, let's sacrifice the humans so we can get better medicine for the lizards. After all, I'm a lizard. I'm sorry, I can't help it. I'm a human. I'm not saying this as if I know what your point of view is, but I'm just trying to clarify how I think about it.
This is where religion and superstition run into the same wall. Claims need evidence. Astrology, extrasensory powers, and vague spiritual language sound impressive until you ask how they work and whether they can be tested. Science does not reject mystery because it hates meaning. It rejects empty claims because truth has to survive examination. Even on animal research, the answer is not blind human arrogance. It is moral reasoning, reduce needless suffering, but face hard trade-offs honestly. Religion wants simple answers. Reality demands evidence, humility, and responsibility.
I'd first like to say happy birthday, Professor Sagan. I'm sorry I didn't get you a present. Now, there are various structures in the Andes and also formations and crops in northern England, which people say are results of extraterrestrial interference or appearances.
The plains of Nazca.
Yes.
N-A-Z-C-A.
I was just wondering about your views of this, whether or not we actually have been landed upon. And
Yeah. Well, one way to look at this is, I mean, first of all, where did all this stuff about the plains of Nazca being somehow mysterious and extraterrestrial come from? It came from a guy named Erich von Däniken, a Swiss hotelier, who wrote a book called Chariots of the Gods, which became a worldwide bestseller, in which he argued as follows. On the plains of Nazca in Peru, there are large drawings. Some of them look like spiders, some look like turkeys, some are straight lines. Von Däniken concluded that the straight lines were airfields, and the other stuff was messages that doltish humans were instructed in carving in the desert of Peru by extraterrestrial overseers. Why? What's this about? We don't know how to draw big pictures without extraterrestrials telling us what to do? Some of those straight lines are 6 inches across. How big are the airplanes that land on those airfields? What are we to imagine? An interstellar spacecraft effortlessly crosses hundreds, thousands of light years. The cargo doors open, and out come little propeller-driven airplanes about that size, like my 3.5-year-old son plays with. And they land in Peru and tell people, we got toy airplanes, please make airports for us. And by the way, make a big turkey. This is silly. The common feature in all of von Däniken's fantasizing is that he sells our ancestors short. He goes to Egypt, he sees pyramids. Boy, those are big. How big are the constituent blocks? 100 tons. 100 tons, says von Däniken. I couldn't lift a block that weighed half that. Therefore, human beings are unable to lift blocks of that mass. Therefore, extraterrestrials did it, QED. But if he had read Herodotus, never mind archaeology, this Herodotus is written, you know, it's in English translation, it's in German translation. We have an idea about quarries and logs as rollers and rafts up the Nile and how humans could do it. We're perfectly capable of building things big, even those of us who lived a long time ago, even those of us with dark skin. People know how to build big. And the idea of extraterrestrial visitation is required every time a naive observer can't figure out how something could be done is silly. The one possible positive aspect of von Däniken is that it might, in frustration, drive an occasional reader into archaeology.
This is the same mental shortcut religion uses. I do not understand it, so a higher power did it. Ancient aliens, miracle claims, and creation stories all lean on that same lazy move. The Nazca lines and pyramids do not require visitors from space. They require human skill, labor, planning, and culture. When people jump to supernatural explanations, they erase real human achievement and replace evidence with fantasy. Christianity does this constantly with nature, morality, and the universe. Ignorance is not proof of God. It is a reason to investigate.
Thank you.
Happy birthday. I'll be honest with you. A friend of mine, well, now an acquaintance of mine, sold me the idea that Steven Spielberg was going to be here, so that's why I came. But look, I'm really
sorry.
happy. Wait, I'm not done. I'm not done.
First I heard of it, I'm awfully sorry that you're disappointed.
I know, but I'm glad I came, because when you were doing all that thing about pointing out where Earth is and how little we are and compared to the universe, wouldn't it be easier for man, women, the music man and genetics? Humans,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, okay. For humans to think that we're not the center of the universe, if we have all this now data, it would be, it's easier. Now, why can't we believe, the challenge now is to think that we are in some way, and somehow, the center of the universe in some kind of way, not physically, not intellectually, but somehow I don't want to make it like a purpose, but some...
Yes, you do.
Okay, it's a purpose. But you know what? It's now easier for us to believe. Okay, it's easier, we can put our mind at rest. But somehow, aren't we closing our mind?
Aren't we closing our mind?
By not saying that we're not in some way the center of the universe.
But imagine that you're an octopus.
Okay, okay, wait, I got it, wait. What about organisms are the center of the universe? Okay, I'll change it. Humans, because we can communicate and understand each other. I'm just saying it because, but what I'm saying, but organisms...
My mind is open. You come up with evidence we're at the center of the universe, I will gladly confess defeat.
Not now, but...
Hello. First of all, I'd like to say I'm glad I didn't get to ask my first question about God, and I left it to him. But my second question, which might be oversimplified, is if every matter has an antimatter, and the Big Bang Theory created the universe, which is supposedly the matter, where is the antimatter in the Big Bang Theory?
There is quite sophisticated cosmological speculation and theory on this. Clearly, if there's an excess of one over the other, and the universe is well mixed, then since matter and antimatter annihilate each other, whichever had a...
Would you stay and talk to people after we dismiss the audience?
My good friend, the emeritus everything, the emeritus dismisser suggests that it's time to come to an end. Let me take, Dale, if I may, one or two more questions, and then I'll stop.
Yeah. Do you think that we're now as demoted as we can get, or
No.
do you think can you see what further humiliations can you see for us in the near future?
Huh? Dr. Wing asked, what further demotions, humiliations do I foresee for us? You see, the idea that our sense of self-worth comes not from anything that we've done, not from anything worthy, but by an accident of birth, is where the crux of the humiliation is in my opinion. I would say those of us worried about being demoted, those of us who wish for us to be important, should do something important. We should make an easily understandable, achievable, and inspiring goal for the human species, and then set out and do it. That would give us the confidence that we sorely lack by being dependent on our self-esteem being based on nothing we do. We want to have self-esteem? Let's make a planet in which nobody is starving. Let's make a planet in which men and women have equal access to power. Let us make a planet in which no ethnic group has it over another ethnic group. Let's have a planet in which science and engineering is used for the benefit of everybody on the planet. And my personal idiosyncrasy, let's have a world in which we go to other worlds. I think I'll stop there. Thank you.
The real challenge is not proving humans are the center. The challenge is growing up after learning we are not. Religion teaches people to borrow self-worth from a cosmic throne, as if being specially chosen matters more than what we actually do. That is weak. Real meaning comes from action. Ending hunger, reducing suffering, building knowledge, protecting life, and using science for everyone. Christianity tells humans they are important by divine status. Science asks humans to become important through responsibility. So here's the question. Do humans need religion to have purpose, or is it time to build meaning with evidence, courage, and action? Drop your answer in the comments, like, subscribe, and tell us what part hit hardest.